political shifts. In Britain, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has stepped down as Labour Party leader, setting off a battle for the keys to Downing Street. Who are the front runners? Who holds the edge, and what forced Starmer's dramatic exit? We explore this in today's episode. And miles away in India, Shiv Sena UBT faction split is now official. 6 out of 9 MPs have switched sides to the Eknath Shinde camp. We tell you how this changes arithmetic for the ruling NDA in the lower house of parliament, the big questions, the key players, and the battle for power, all coming up next. Let's get started. Well, following months of pressure, Keir Starmer has announced his resignation as UK Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, kick-starting a process that will see Britain getting a new Prime Minister yet again. In a speech outside 10 Downing Street, Starmer conceded he had lost the support of his Labour Party MPs. Starmer also said he had informed King Charles of his decision to resign so that a new Labour leader and Prime Minister could be elected.
I will ask the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July and completed by the summer recess. In the case of a contest, this will ensure a new leader is in place before Parliament returns in September.
Now, Starmer's departure follows mounting pressure from within Labour Party after disappointing election performances, internal divisions and growing concerns over the party's ability to counter the rise of Reform UK. Starmer said he would remain in office until the Labour Party elects a new leader and Prime Minister. Well, several senior ministers and party figures are now being discussed as potential successors as Labour prepares for a leadership contest. And Andy Burnham, he is widely seen as the leading candidate to succeed Starmer. Hours after Keir Starmer resigns as leader of the Labour Party, Burnham was sworn in as the new MP for Makerfield. He has confirmed that he would seek to replace Starmer as leader of the ruling Labour Party and eventually the Prime Minister. Similarly, Angela Rayner remains one of the most recognisable figures in the party and is often mentioned as a possible successor. Other potential challenges for the UK top job include former Health Secretary Wes Streeting as well. And Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is in the race as well. Now, the leader of the hard-right anti-immigration reform UK party, Nigel Farage, has called for general elections to be held after Starmer announced his resignation. With Starmer's exit, the list of UK Prime Ministers who have left office before the next general election, it continues to grow from the departures of Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. Frequent changes in leadership have become a defining feature of British politics, especially in the post-Brexit era. Meanwhile, Russian presidential envoy Kirill Dmitriev has celebrated British Prime Minister Starmer's resignation, even publicly claiming that Russia did this jointly by exposing Starmer's policies. Starmer's resignation comes less than 2 years after Labour's sweeping victory in the 2024 general election. He was nearly ousted in March over his ill-fated decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, a known associate of the late US sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This was as the UK's ambassador to Washington. To discuss further on this, let me welcome my guest at the moment, Adam Schwartz, writer and political commentator. He's joining us live on the broadcast from London. Adam, welcome to the broadcast. Starmer has finally given in, hasn't he? And how long before we see the next successor and the Prime Minister of United Kingdom?
Well, I think at this point, Starmer's resignation was really not a surprise to anyone. It's been increasingly clear over the last few months, I think particularly since last month's local elections, that his position as Prime Minister was just completely untenable. I think really the final issue that made him realise that he had no path to remaining in power was really the kind of irreversible loss of authority that he had within his own parliamentary Labour Party, particularly after Andy Burnham's very large victory in the by-election last week, which has seen seen him return to Parliament today, which allows him to run for leader of the Labour Party, which I think really saw a kind of major shift in terms of influence of the Labour Party away from Starmer towards an actual viable alternative candidate. But as you say, Starmer did announce a sort of rough timetable for a new leader of the Labour Party and a new Prime Minister, really to be in office by September. But I would think really a lot of expectations today are, in fact, that there won't be a contested election where you have several different candidates running, but actually rather there'll be more of a coronation with just Andy Burnham running. I mean, we certainly saw Wes Streeting a few hours ago already announced that he's not going to stand, despite a lot of hype around that. And actually, he is going to be supporting Andy Burnham. And I think he was really considered as really one of the main contenders against Andy Burnham. So I think really Labour MPs are trying to kind of coalesce around this idea that actually they don't really want a very messy contested leadership election, and actually just having Andy Burnham sort of neatly fall into the position will actually be the best case scenario for them at the moment.
Yes, Adam, let's also talk about the Brexit. It's been almost 10 years now, and UK might possibly get its 7th Prime Minister. And the politics of Brexit on its own, it has proven to be extremely unstable for the country. What do you think is the way out? And do you consider Brexit to be one of the cases behind UK's current condition?
Well, a lot of commentators and people in the UK today are wondering, how could we be entering our 6th Prime Minister over the last 5 years and our 7th over the last decade? And really, you don't have to think too hard to actually think what happened in 2016 that really triggered this chaos in a country that was long considered to be one of the most stable democracies in the world. And of course, as you mentioned, it was Brexit. We voted to leave the European Union by a thin margin in the summer of 2016, 10 years ago. And really, since then, Britain has kind of collapsed politically. We've burnt through several years basically just trying to implement the decision of Brexit, which of course was very difficult because no one actually had one particular idea of what Brexit meant. And I think ultimately we are in this chaos, and we will continue to be in this chaos because of what Brexit has done to our economy and our society. Because ultimately, Brexit prevents any government from trying to allow the kind of economy and public services and living standards that really British voters expect. And actually, rather than improve all the problems in British society in terms of wages, in terms of jobs, in terms of housing, that was promised in the referendum, actually it's made all of those issues so much worse. And I think ultimately it has kind of bound British prime ministers in a way that they weren't done before, because ultimately the best way to get voters to vote for you is actually to grow the economy, to increase living standards, to have good public services. And actually you have very, very few levers in which you can actually do that. And of course, ultimately the best way of doing that is through growth. And Brexit really constrains the UK's growth to a massive degree. We've already lost about 6% of our growth. So I think really in terms of looking about the wider shot about how did the UK end up in this chaos, of course it's Brexit. But of course, the crucial point here as well is who is waiting in the wings, who is leading in opinion polls in the UK. It's Nigel Farage's Reform UK. And of course, who was one of the main leaders of Brexit over the last few decades? It was Nigel Farage. So in fact, he is the main beneficiary of his own failed policy. So I think really the UK has to look very seriously about our current kind of constitutional economic setup, because it's simply not working for the UK, and it will continue to cause problems for as long as we're outside the European Union.
But Adam, it's almost like a revolving door now. It looks like it's one of the fastest changing jobs in the United Kingdom, the role of Prime Minister. And even if Andy Burnham comes as the successor of Keir Starmer, what is to be said that he will not face the same exact challenges? And how can he take UK out of this chaos that you mentioned?
Well, I think that is really the fundamental point that, really many people don't really have the answers to. I think the main issue that was actually constraining Keir Starmer's government was the fact that he actually couldn't borrow more money to fund public services and try to increase living standards for a lot of people, because fundamentally the bond markets will not allow the UK's government to actually borrow much more money. So really, it's very difficult to see how Andy Burnham will actually fundamentally change the situation. But, in reality, these are political issues issues. And Keir Starmer is, polling as the worst prime minister really since records began in the 1970s. And so fundamentally, the party had to deal with that. But I think, there's going to be a lot of big decisions for Andy Burnham to make. If it is a coronation and there's no contested election, I think Burnham will actually be in a weaker position, because if he had been elected, at least by Labour members, he would have some kind of mandate perhaps to deviate somewhat from Labour's manifesto in 2024. But of course, if there is no leadership election, then actually that creates some kind of perceived democratic deficit for him as prime minister, which of course will only increase calls that there should be an election. So I think ultimately we might see Andy Burnham actually having to stick quite closely to the Labour manifesto, which of course, that's exactly what Keir Starmer was doing. I think really the key issue for Burnham here is actually going to be on communications, because Keir Starmer was really perceived as not a very good communicator after the election. Really, Burnham needs to try to push forward, if he is the leader, needs to push forward this idea that actually the government is a government of change. And that is going to be quite difficult to do, considering that his policy options are actually quite limited.
Sure, Adam. It'll be interesting to look at the race to power in the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast and getting your insights.
Good to be with you.
Well, now let's listen to how people are reacting to Keir Starmer's resignation and potential candidates who are in fray to replace him.
I'm not surprised. I think he's done the right thing. I think he needs to step aside and let someone else take over. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing.
It appears to be a foregone conclusion that Andy Burnham is going to become Prime Minister. It looks like it might be a coronation. There is some debate that it should be contested, and it would be more healthy if there was some form of contest.
I'm glad, really. Just needed a change. I think like most of the country are probably feeling the same way as what I am. Like all you're hearing is like how much of a bad job he's doing. And I did want to vote Labour in the first place. But I'm just worried it's going to be out of the frying pan and into the fire now with potentially this Andy Burnham coming in.
Well, I think it's good because I'm living here 18 years, and since I came over here, this country was beautiful. You could work, live, do whatever you like. Right now, you just work like slave, and you don't have money for nothing. I'm a hard-working labor. I work in construction site, and it's really this country went down for since a couple of years already.
US President Donald Trump's plan to get Israel out of Lebanon and put Syria in charge of dealing with Hezbollah has faced a major setback. Trump has openly asked Israeli Prime Minister to let Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa tackle Hezbollah, and now it turns out that Syrian government is not open to the prospect. During an interview, Syria's president said he is looking for economic channels between Lebanon and Syria, not military ones. And the statement comes after Trump expressed disappointment over effectiveness of Israel's operations to put away Hezbollah. Now, during an interview with Fox News, the US president said he is close to giving fight against Hezbollah to Syria. Sharaa and Hezbollah are already at odds over Lebanese groups' involvement in Syrian civil war. Now, Syria and Lebanon share more in common than just a border. Hezbollah was politically and ethnically aligned to Bashar al-Assad-led government in Syria, and after Assad's fall, Hezbollah supply lines through Syria got choked, leaving the group vulnerable in the wake of Israeli attacks. Sharaa supports Lebanese government's efforts to disarm Hezbollah but refuses to get involved in a military confrontation. Contrary to Trump's wish and Iran's demand, Israeli Prime Minister has refused to withdraw from southern Lebanon.
The directive from me and the Minister of Defense to the IDF is clear and has not changed. Our fighters in southern Lebanon have full freedom of action to thwart any direct or emerging threat against them or against the residents of the north. I firmly insist that we remain in the security zone in southern Lebanon for as long as necessary in order to protect the residents of the north and all citizens of the state.
Well, US President now faces a major task. He must convince Israel to withdraw its forces from Lebanon in an effort to fulfill Iran's conditions for a final deal. But at the same time, he seemingly does not want to let Hezbollah grow more influential in and around Lebanon. We shift our focus to India now. Political corridors are witnessing a familiar turn of events in Maharashtra. Two-thirds MPs belonging to Shiv Sena's Uddhav Thackeray faction have joined hands with Shiv Sena faction led by Eknath Shinde. The crossover played out at YB Chavan Center in South Mumbai, where 6 breakaway Shiv Sena MPs shared dais with Eknath Shinde to announce their decision to join the group. Eknath Shinde called the revolt an effort to save Bal Thackeray's Shiv Sena and preserve the ideology of the party. Now, list of rebels include Hingoli MP Nagesh Bapurao, Yavatmal Washim MP Sanjay Deshmukh, Sanjay Jadhav from Parbhani, Sanjay Dina Patil from Mumbai North East, Om Prakash Rajanimbalkar and Bhau Sahib Wagchaure from Dharashiv and Shirdi respectively together. The political crisis, it has now been nicknamed as Operation Tiger by BJP and Shinde. It has further weakened Uddhav Thackeray's camp as rebel bloc now represents two-thirds strength required to avoid disqualification under India's anti-defection law. Amid the growing rebellion within Shiv Sena UBT, Uddhav Thackeray is expected to address party legislators and even lay out his strategy following the revolt. Meeting comes just days after a similar gathering on June 17, which was skipped by 6 MPs now believed to be part of rebel camp. Well, if we look into some context, Shiv Sena has a long history of rebellions. Party has seen some high-profile departures. Bal Thackeray's close and Chhagan Bhujbal left the party in 1991. Next major departure came in 2004 when former Chief Minister Narayan Rane left Shiv Sena. Later, he joined BJP and rose to the rank of Union Minister under Narendra Modi government. One of the biggest jolts, it came in 2005 when Bal Thackeray's nephew Raj Thackeray left the party to form his separate political outfit. He was seen as Bal Thackeray's political ire, but left the party after Uddhav Thackeray rose to prominence. Now, next major jolt, it came in 2022 when majority of MPs and MLAs, they joined Eknath Shinde faction. He later became state's chief minister with BJP's support, and Shinde now claims to be leading the real Shiv Sena with the original bow and arrow symbol. Now, the latest split tilts the numbers in the lower house of the parliament in ruling NDA's favour. The bloc has added around 26 MPs to their kitty in less than a month, owing to revolts in Mamata Banerjee's Trinamool Congress and Shiv Sena UBT. For more on this, our principal correspondent Disha Yadav has sent us this report from Mumbai. Take a look.
A major setback for Uddhav Thackeray as 6 of its rebel MPs formally joined Eknath Shinde-led Shiv Sena on Monday. The induction took place in Mumbai today in the presence of the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Eknath Shinde, who claimed the success of the Operation Tiger and also further stated that this is not the end, hinting that more, of course, MPs or MLAs could join the party in the coming weeks. Now, what we understand that all of the 6 rebel MPs claim that they had joined the party, keeping in mind the interest of the Shiv Sena workers and to further strengthen the party politically. Now, this is a major setback for Uddhav Thackeray because what happens next will be to closely watch out for, because firstly, whether more MPs or MLAs or leaders from the Uddhav camp will follow the suit or not, that is something which have to be closely watched in the next few days, because today also Uddhav Thackeray held a meeting with its MPs as well as MLAs, and 3 of the leaders were absent, citing personal reasons. So, of course, speculations are doing the rounds. Secondly, the parliamentary sittings in the Lok Sabha also will be very key developments to watch out for. This is Isha reporting here for WION from Mumbai.
On to Nepal now. The country's ruling Rashtriya Swatantra Party is holding its first national convention. Today was the second day, and the convention, which started on Sunday, will run until Tuesday. It was jointly inaugurated by RSP President Ravi Lamichhane and Prime Minister Balendra Shah, and over 4,200 representatives and party delegates are participating from 7 provinces and 33 countries. The second day was marked with strict closed sessions. Authorized delegates engaged in intensive discussions regarding party policies, organizational architecture, and strategic roadmap preparation. The convention highlights ongoing high-level merger discussions, including a newly signed 7-point unification agreement with the Udyalo Nepal Party, appointing Kulman Khishing as the RSP vice chair. Remember, he was earlier with the RSP party as well. Major political rivals also marked their presence, notably featuring Nepali Congress leader Gagan Thapa on stage alongside RSP leadership to signal a rare cross-party dialogue. Our correspondent Saloni Murarka has sent us more details with this report from Kathmandu.
The Rashtriya Swatantra Party is holding its first ever national convention, where it is expected to unanimously elect party founder Ravi Lamichhane as a chairperson and Prime Minister Balendra Shah as a senior leader. While the top posts are settled, contest is intensifying for key leadership positions. For a party that emerged as an alternative to Nepal's political establishment, this convention is more than just an internal election. It is a time for RSP to transform and show itself that it can transform from popular movement to a long-term political institution. Many of the opposition leaders who attended the inaugural of this convention urged RSP to respect the mandate that it received in March election. This convention also received attraction from the other Asian countries like Bhutan, India and China, where many of the political parties and organizations from these countries sent their congratulatory messages to Rashtriya Swatantra Party. I'm Saloni Murarka, reporting for WION from Kathmandu, Nepal.
After 50 days of intense protests, the disrupted supply of fuel, food and medical items across Bolivia, President Rodrigo Paz declared a state of emergency. However, protests continue in the political stronghold of ex-Bolivian President Evo Morales. Take a look at this report.
Since early May, Bolivia has been rocked by huge anti-government protests. Road blockades in several parts of the country left cities like Capital La Paz and El Alto short of fuel and food. At least 14 people lost their lives, and the economic losses have been estimated at over $2 billion. Dubbing the protests as an attempted coup, Bolivia's President Rodrigo Paz declared a state of emergency on June 20th, which was ratified by the country's parliament. It was aimed at restoring transit and supply of essential goods. The military has now been deployed to clear blockades and prohibit people from blocking roads and highways. But clashes between military forces and demonstrators broke out on the highway connecting Cochabamba to the center of Bolivia. While the security personnel were seen firing tear gas, protesters allegedly threw explosives at them.
They, roadblockers, threw stones at me and tossed dynamite into my truck. And last night they threatened to burn my truck again. So last night we had to sleep in fear.
Cochabamba is considered the political stronghold of ex-Bolivian President Evo Morales. Coca Growers Union, close to him, are leading protests there. The government accuses him of instigating and financing protests to secure immunity from a judicial probe into the alleged abuse of a minor when he was president. However, Moraes has denied this and linked the protests to economic hardship. In a tragedy, an Air Force jet which had been conducting aerial patrol over a blockaded highway connecting La Paz and Cochabamba crashed, leaving 6 people dead. Amid the protests, the government has left the doors open for dialogue to resolve the crises.
The doors are open to continue dialogue. Moreover, this decree provides the possibility of continuing dialogue with the groups that want to resist. But today, the Constitution has already mandated that we must safeguard and guarantee Bolivians' freedom of movement.
There is a ray of hope for the people. After successful negotiations with many protesters, the number of roadblocks have been reduced to 28. While the emergency will last 90 days, the government has hinted that it could be lifted earlier if violence comes to an end. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, that's all we have in today's edition of Race to Power. But before we let you go, a reminder to our viewers in India that you can watch all 2026 FIFA World Cup matches on Z5. Defending champions Argentina will be in action against Austria. Tune in and catch all the action live. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to WION World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION, World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
This is WION World is One. We're glad you're watching. Thank you for staying with us and welcome back. You're just in time for Fine Print. I'm Mary Kunjoka. Let's begin with our top stories. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval hold delegation-level bilateral talks in New Delhi on the sidelines of the BRICS National Security Advisors meeting. Andy Burnham sworn in as the Member of Parliament for Makerfield hours after Keir Starmer announced his resignation as Labour Party leader, makes comeback in British Parliament. A task force of the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning concludes its Far Sea combat training and returns safely to its home port. Chinese Navy calls it a routine exercise of its annual plan. At least 14 students killed after a massive fire breaks out at a building housing a coaching center in the Aliganj area of northwest Lucknow. Several people were trapped after the fire erupted, forcing some students to jump from the first floor. Alan Greenspan, the longtime U.S. Federal Reserve chief who presided over an unprecedented American economic expansion but was later faulted for failing to rein in financial markets before the 2008 global crisis, dies at the age of 100. Indian fintech firm Cred's founder Kunal Shah will become Meta-owned WhatsApp's new leader. The announcement comes after Cred announced it will raise about $900 million from Meta. Kylian Mbappe and France will take the pitch today and will be heavy favourites against Iraq. Mbappe is just 2 goals behind Messi's World Cup tally and could catch up with the Argentine during the tournament. Russia and Ukraine have intensified attacks on each other in recent weeks as US-led talks on ending Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II remain effectively frozen. While Moscow exploits Ukraine's vulnerability to ballistic missiles, Kyiv is using jet-powered drones to carry out deep strikes inside Russia. Here's a report.
Russia is going all guns blazing. It is redefining a new model of strikes on Ukrainian cities. Moscow is highly relying on concentrated salvos of ballistic and hypersonic missiles, apart from attack drones and guided bombs, to inflict maximum damage. These images from Kiev, Zaporizhzhia, Kharkiv, and Sumy show how Moscow has been changing its approach as Ukraine faces a growing shortage of Patriot interceptors. Though drones remain Russia's primary weapon, experts say Moscow is placing all its bets on ballistic missile, while cruise missile become a tool for exhausting air defense.
There are strikes every day, Shahed drone attacks. These strike drones have become more frequent, and there is no effective countermeasure against them, although local authorities are covering parts of the city with nets to try to protect it.
4 years ago, cruise missile made up roughly 70–80% of Russia's missile attacks, and ballistic missile played a much smaller role. In the past 3 weeks, Russia has launched the largest simultaneous use of Zircon missile. The nuclear-capable hypersonic cruise missile uses its extreme speed and high maneuverability, giving air defense systems very little